Hi guys, welcome to my backyard Kentucky homestead. My name is Kim. Today we're going to look at 4 kid-friendly Valentine Day treats you can make for your child's school party. So let's get started. The first recipe we're going to make is a cookies and cream blondie. It has chocolate chips as well as smashed Oreo cookies. In the bowl, we have 2 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of kosher salt. We're going to do a half a teaspoon of baking soda, and then we're going to mix that up and set that aside for the moment. So next we're going to work on our wet ingredients. In the stand mixer, I'm going to add 3/4 of a cup or 1 1/2 sticks of melted butter, and then we are going to add 1 cup of granulated sugar. We're going to turn that on and mix until it's well combined. And I forgot a half a cup of brown sugar, so we're going to pop that in here as well. Turn it on. Next, we're going to add in 2 eggs and vanilla. It's a good idea, even with store-bought eggs, to go ahead and to crack them in a separate bowl, because you can, every once in a while, get a rotten egg and you don't want to destroy your whole recipe. It also makes it easier to get a shell out if you get a cracked shell in there. So 2 eggs and then 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. This is vanilla extract that I made at home. And we're just going to give it a generous teaspoon. And then we're going to turn this back on and mix well, scraping down the sides if necessary. And then we're slowly going to start adding the flour in. So I'm going to start adding a little bit of the flour mixture. And we are going to mix just until combined. That should do it. Clean off the batters, because next we're going to fold in some chocolate chips and Oreo cookies. So what we want to do next is we need to crush up the Oreos. And what I'm going to do, I put them in a plastic bag. And I'm just going to use, you could use a glass or any other, a pot. Just gonna break them up. We don't want to pulverize them, but we're just going to mix smaller pieces. Should be good. So then we're going to fold in about 2/3 of our chocolate chips and about a cup of the topping, or the Oreos. Okay, then we're going to set aside the remaining chips and the remaining Oreos to put on the top. So we'll just gently fold these in. I've got my oven heated to 350 degrees, and I've got a 9x13 pan, and I've got parchment paper. In order to make it fit a little easier, I've crinkled it up so it's all wrinkly, so it'll go into the dish easier. So then we're going to dump this into the dish. spread it evenly around. Something that you can do, I'm going to do this with the next item that we are working on too. Put a little cooking spray. This is avocado spray. And whatever it is you're working with won't stick as bad to your hands. I'm going to sprinkle the rest of the chocolate chips over the top of it. And the remaining Oreos. That looks pretty good. So we'll get this in the oven. It's 350 degrees for 22 minutes. We're going to make heart-shaped Rice Krispy treats that we're going to dip in chocolate. So we need 3 tablespoons of butter. We're going to melt that. Once it is melted, then we are going to add the marshmallows. And you want to do this on low heat so we don't burn the butter. So the butter is melted and we're going to add our marshmallows. And we are going to stir this till all the marshmallows are completely melted. Almost there. So now we are going to add 6 cups of Rice Krispies. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them on a cookie sheet because I want to be able to cut them out with a cookie cutter. Put them on parchment, spray it with some avocado oil. I'm going to dump it out and then spread it as thin as I can get it. Some spray on my hands. It'll make it a whole lot easier to spread it out. Okay. So we will let this cool and then come back in a little while with a heart-shaped cookie cutter and cut out little hearts. For the next recipe, we're going to make strawberry oatmeal bars. And for that, we will need 1 cup of old-fashioned oats. We're going to add 3/4 cup of flour. We're going to add 1/3 cup of brown sugar. We're going to add 1/4 teaspoon of ground ginger. Okay. And 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Mix that all up. And then we're going to pour in 6 tablespoons of melted butter. And then we are going to stir until it forms clumps. And all of the dry ingredients are evenly moist. It's looking good. Got clumps. So we're going to take about 1/2 cup of this out for the topping. Set it aside, and the rest of it we're going to press into the dish and distribute evenly over the bottom of the pan. We have the blondies finished. Let those cool. I'm going to turn the oven up to 375 for this recipe. Spread this around. And then we're going to sprinkle the strawberries. Now, could not find decent strawberries in the store. It's February. So I had freeze-dried strawberries from last year that I have rehydrated, so I'm going to use those. Just give them evenly distributed. So we are going to sprinkle 1 teaspoon of cornstarch over the top of this. And you could substitute tapioca starch if you want, if you don't want to use cornstarch. Just trying to make sure it gets evenly distributed and no lumps. So I have a fresh lemon and I'm just going to gently sprinkle it over. Not too much, just give it a little bit of flavor. Put the remaining strawberries on top. Add a little bit more sugar. And then we're going to take the remaining crumbles and pour it over the top. I'm just going to break it up a little bit. Alright, so there we have it. So we're going to put this in the oven, bake it for 35 to 40 minutes. until fruit is bubbly and the crumb topping smells toasty and looks golden. Hi guys, so it's actually the next evening. I had kind of a snafu last night. I work full time, so by the time I started making the Valentine treats, it was fairly late. And by the time I got to the chocolate decoration on the Rice Krispy treats, it was really late. I was very tired. So I kind of ended up with something that was probably more appropriate for a Bloody Massacre Halloween treat versus a kid's Valentine treat. So I'll put a picture here. But I decided to just stop for the evening and start over today. So I have remade the Rice Krispy treats. We're just letting, I try to cut them, but they're a little bit too soft yet. So we're gonna let them finish setting up and then we'll cut them out and decorate them in a different manner than what I did yesterday because that just was bad. So we'll let these set for a while. So in the meantime, we're gonna go ahead and make a white chocolate chip cookie and we are going to roll it in this red sanding sugar. So it should be really pretty, very Valentine-esque. So the recipe I'm using is on the back of just the Nestle Toll House chips. So it's just your basic recipe. So for the white chocolate chip Toll House cookies, we will need 2 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 cup or 2 sticks of softened butter, 3/4 cup of white granulated sugar, and 3/4 cup of packed brown sugar. So we have that. And then we need a teaspoon of vanilla, 2 large eggs, and 2 cups of chocolate chips. So let's get this put together. So I have my oven heated to 375 degrees. In the large mixing bowl, we are going to put our 2 sticks of softened butter. And then we're going to add our sugar, 1 teaspoon of vanilla. So we have soft butter, sugar, brown sugar, and vanilla, and we're going to beat this until creamy. In the meantime, to ensure that our dry ingredients are well incorporated, we're going to go ahead and mix them in this bowl because we want to make sure we don't get the baking soda or the salt clumped up in one little cookie, one little bite. That would be a very, very horrible bite. So we've got 2 1/4 cup of flour, 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and make sure it's all broken up. Okay. And then we're going to do 1 teaspoon of salt. And we're just going to mix that up. So let's double check everything. 2 1/4 cup of flour, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of salt. 2 sticks of butter, 3/4 cup of granulated sugar, 3/4 cup of packed brown sugar, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. I'm gonna scrape the sides down. Make sure everything's getting very well incorporated. I'll let that mix for just a little bit longer. I'm gonna turn it up a little bit. Okay, so the next thing is to add 2 eggs, 1 at a time. Let it combine thoroughly in between. So get that one in there. We're going to turn it back on and let it mix well. And I would recommend washing your hands in between or after you do the egg, just to prevent any possible infection of salmonella. Okay. Okay, we're going to put the second egg in. I'm going to start adding the flour, baking soda, and salt mixture slowly, just a little bit at a time. Okay, that looks pretty well mixed. I'm going to go ahead and get all of the dough off of the beater here. But once the dough gets to this stage, I like to use a really sturdy spoon. It doesn't have a lot of flex to it, so it's a lot stronger. The spatula I was using, it will bend easy and it's hard to get it all mixed up. Okay, so we got our good cookie dough, and we're going to dump in our chocolate chips, and then we will stir just until combined. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and pull out a whole bunch of these with a cookie scoop. I'm going to start rolling them into a ball, and once I have several, then I'll start dredging them through the red sugar. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to roll these into a ball, run them through the sugar, and then just leave a couple of inches in between each one because they will spread a fair bit. So the first batch of cookies is in. We're going to go ahead and get our Rice Krispy treats cut up into hearts. So we're using these heart-shaped cookie cutters. I've got 2 sizes. We'll do a few of each one. And they're a little hard on your hands to press, so I'm going to use a small dish just to use as leverage. Okay. Then we got our little heart. And we'll just keep going through these till we have them all cut. All right, so now we have all of our hearts cut out, and we're going to work on melting the chocolate. I'm using a candy wafer. And what we're going to do is we're going to put these in the microwave for 30 seconds at a time, and then we're going to stir in between. Once you get to the point where there's only a very small little bits left, go ahead and keep stirring it for 10 to 20 seconds to see if they'll just melt out on their own, because you want to be careful not to scorch the chocolate. So let me get this melted and then we'll be back. All right, so our chocolate is just about ready. We have a few lumps left, but it's really liquidy. So I'm just going to keep stirring it for a minute and just see if all of that will just melt down. Looks good. All right, so let's start drizzling. What I'm going to use is a fork. Let's see if this works. And I want to just go back and forth. Just going to drizzle it along. Thank you guys for joining me. Hopefully this gave you some ideas or inspiration for items that you can make for your child's school Valentine's Day party or even one at work. I know I brought the strawberry oatmeal bars in, the blondie Oreo cookie bars in, and the massacre Valentine hearts in. And my office really enjoyed them. So I'm going to bring these treats in there tomorrow. So thank you for joining me. And I hope you make some of these things and share them with your family, friends, and schoolmates. Thank you.